afternoon to all.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of NSHM Knowledge Campus, Kolkata Group of Institutions, I am Director Dr. S. Maiti. Heartily welcome to Dr. Devaprasad Chattopadhyay. Heartily welcome to Dr. Devaprasad Chattopadhyay, Director ICMR, Colonel Pramod Sahaji Dahitule, Director Fssai, Dr. Asim Dotto Roy, Professor, Faculty of Medicine, University of Oslo, and Dr. Devnath Chaudhary, our renowned Professor of NSHM, as well as the ex-Professor and Head, Department of Biochemistry and Nutrition, All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health. NSHM started his journey at the year 1996 from Durgapur. We have two campuses in West Bengal. We have several campuses in different states, 2 campuses in West Bengal. And our dietetics and nutrition department started journey from 2018. The program has already been recognized by conducting different conferences and other scientific programs. Our objective is to connect and collaborate with leaders of academia, industry, and government, as well as research personnel, to create industry readiness and foster the development of our students. We are very keen to looking forward to conduct full-fledged research projects on nutrition. At present, the world is facing one serious health crisis by COVID-19 pandemic. Everyone is talking about how to acquire higher immunity. We all know the food has a significant impact on our health. That is why now the role of nutritionist, dietitian will be more important than previous status. More numbers of dietitian and nutritionists will be required to let understand the common people what to eat, what not to eat during this COVID situation. Other than the food industry needs more nutrition professionals to cope up with the current situation. Similarly, world need more researchers dealing with nutrition to find out alternative remedy against any viral infections. That's why so many nutraceuticals are coming in focus nowadays. For example, I can say Neurova, fruit flow tablets, etc. The present webinar might solve the purpose successfully as internationally recognized scientists, faculties, directors in the field of dietetics and nutrition are present here to showcase the objective of today's topic. I thank you them for accepting our invitation and wish all the very best for today's program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So now, without any delay, I would like to introduce you to our distinguished moderator of today's session, Dr. Devnath Chaudhary, a renowned person in the field of nutrition. Dr. Chaudhary is an eminent scientist, ex-head of the department, professor, Department of Biochemistry and Nutrition, All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health, Kolkata. Dr. Chaudhary is having 62 national and international publications in the field of nutrition. Dr. Chaudhary has guided 5 PhD students so far. He was editor-in-chief of the Journal of Indian Dietetics Association and remains editor-reviewer for several national international journals of repute. Dr. Chaudhary is the president of Society for Nutrition and Dietetics. On behalf of NSHM, I welcome you, sir. I would like to request you to initiate the session.
Thank you, Joyita. Am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, very fine.
Thank you, everybody. And I welcome all the speakers and participants on my behalf. I would like to speak few words before I can introduce the speakers and they will start their deliberation. I would like to start with a famous quotation of Hippocrates: "Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food," which emphasized the importance of nutrition for the prevention and treatment of diseases. As our director very clearly emphasized the importance of nutrition and dietetics, I just like to add that nutrition plays a vital role in the building and maintenance of immune system. Therefore, it's high time to discuss the role of specific nutrients. It might be some nutrients are more important in terms of immunity than others. So it's important to discuss the role of specific nutrients, their mode of action, and ultimately maybe the food as a whole to fight against infectious diseases, including COVID-19. I congratulate the Department of Dietetics and Nutrition of NSHM Knowledge Campus, Kolkata, for organizing very important webinar, and I'm thankful to them for giving me the opportunity to moderate the seminar. Now I am having the pleasant duty of introducing our speakers. We will be having 3 speakers, all eminent in their respective areas. But I would like to start with our first speaker, which is Professor Ashim Dr. Roy. And Dr. Ashim Dr. Roy is the professor at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Oslo, Norway. He is also the group leader in clinical nutrition. Previous to this, he was associated in the research and teaching programs of several universities and institutes of US and UK. His research programs focus on the roles of food components on growth, development, as well as in the prevention of chronic diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. He is investigating the roles of fatty acids in development and functionalities of human placenta. He also researches the antiplatelet and anti-hypertensive properties of fruits and vegetables. Professor Dr. Roy has more than 250 publications and supervised 35 PhD or MD students. His patented discoveries of antithrombotic factors in tomatoes and kiwi fruits are now being commercialized by companies. He is the editor-in-chief of Food and Nutrition Research. Professor Dr. Roy was invited by the Nobel Academy to nominate candidate for the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. He has been conferred with several international awards and recognitions. Professor Ashim Dr. Roy will speak on immunity, nutrition, and COVID-19. I request Professor Ashim Dr. Roy to me, Ashimda, to start his deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Devnath, for your kind introduction. And I'm also grateful to the organizer, the director of the institute, and other 2 speakers, and numerous people who actually registered for this webinar. And of course, it's a very difficult time for all of us. And in Norway, we are much better off than other countries in terms of restricting the infection, and almost we're out of lockdown. Anyway, with this few words, I'll start my presentation which is nutrition, immunity, nutrition, and COVID-19. And may I know how to join? Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Hello?
Hello, Joyita.
I can
Sir,
see.
apni
Sir, you go with the share screen option and just then go your
Okay.
PowerPoint slides.
Where I'll see the share screen.
At
Okay.
the bottom.
At the bottom.
Okay, I got it.
Yes, sir. So just click on the share screen option and
I
then
did it, and then something, open system preference, it comes.
yes, there you have to select the PPT slides that remains open in your desktop.
Ah.
So you can send it to us. We can share the screen.
Okay, I'm sending you. Where should I send?
To my email ID.
Email ID, okay.
Yes.
Can you give your email ID, please?
It's JOYETA.
Chatte di the chatte.
Right, sir.
Chatte rich. Okay. Should I give in chat, really?
No, sir, I'm giving you the email ID in chat and you just send it to me. There is so many messages in the chat. So I just now sent.
Sorry for all this.
So can you check your WhatsApp? I'm just sending it there also.
That I can't send a mail, but I can send you to WhatsApp, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, just send it to me.
Yeah, I did it now.
Right, sir.
So in the meantime, I can start talking anyhow.
Right.
Yes, yes, of course.
Okay. Okay, what I was trying to tell you that I'll be talking about bit nutrition part, immunity part and nutrition, and then I'll come to my conclusion that why this cytokine storm is happening and killing people. If we look at the immune system itself, we have a very complex and confusing immune system. It actually involves so many things from skin to cells, even mucosa, etc., etc. Because we are faced with different kinds of invading things from chemicals to bacteria, virus, worm, etc., etc. So nature actually produce that sort of immune system so that we can survive. And we are all the time facing these foreign entities. In fact, ourselves, we are actually hybrid in a way. We have more microbes than our own cells, but we don't have immune response that way. Only when some certain virus and bacteria, they invade us, and then there's a problem starts. Now, if you look at sorry, what's going on?
I have no knowledge. 10 लोग क्या करेगा हमारा हाथ में 10 रही नहीं लगेगा.
Dr. Dev Prashad sir.
Video.
So, Dr.
Audio.
Will you please mute yourself?
Sure. इधर है म्यूट इधर.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, go ahead, please, sir. Carry
Okay.
on. Okay.
The immune system is always active and requires so many things, coordination among themselves. I'll be talking a little bit later, innate system and adaptive systems. But the important thing is the nutritional point of view, because all these things, and they require certain molecules as well as energy. A number of vitamins and trace elements like zinc, copper, and selenium that have been demonstrated have key roles in supporting the human immune systems and reducing the risk of infection, including cancer. And other essential nutrients, including vitamins, trace elements, amino acid, fatty acid, into this. And each of the nutrients named above has the roles in supporting these antibacterial, antiviral defenses. But the question is really when the virus invades us, and if our immune system is hyperactive, and most of the problem, it happens because of hyperreaction of the immune system. For example, if there is a small fire and smokes, and if you call the emergency systems, and you will see that hundreds of firefighters are here and everything, it's a big problem. And cytokine storm is kind of this actually, because it is kind of an unusual kind of a response coming from immune systems. And that is actually the major reason of so many fatalities we are seeing it that we didn't see in 2009 when the immune system was not that hyperactive. Now, I will be talking details on the immune systems and the part of the immune system which is regulated by dietary sufficiency or insufficiency, and what is the ultimate clinical result about it, and then what we can do about it in the Indian context. So can I see the slide right now, or then still a problem?
Sir, there is still a problem. We are trying to open it.
Okay. Sorry, that's why I came early.
Sorry,
I thought,
sir.
it should be solved. So this immune system, actually the major, most important function is they create a barrier to prevent pathogens from entering the body, and then identify the pathogens if they breach a barrier, and then eliminating the pathogens and generating an immunological memory that we talk about a little bit later, both B cells and T cells. Now, the barrier is the most important thing, skin. And skin barrier, our skin is completely covered with bacteria and microbes, mostly beneficial. And this doesn't allow the pathogenic bacteria, etc., to sit there. And the skin tightness and gap junctions are regulated by vitamin A and fatty acids. These are very important. And then identifying the pathogens. And you know that when the virus enters into the system or bacteria, then we have a system called pattern receptor recognition systems of the embedded cells, and they like a toll receptor, etc. Then they recognize it. They recognize only the PAP, that is the pathogenic associated molecular patterns. This interaction is very important. And if they embed, there are two types of immune system, innate and adaptive. I talked about it, and there is a crosstalk between. The most important to know that we have a major histocompatibility complex 1 and 2. And these are very important in order to understand the role of diet and nutrient factors and how they interact each other. This MHC1, these are present in almost all the nucleated cells. Our body cells, those who have a nucleus, they have MHC1. And only few cells, we call it antigen presenting cells, dendritic cells, macrophages, and some other cells, they have MHC2. Now the difference between two are very important. For MHC1, they actually present in all the cells. If the virus, it is there now? Hello?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. Sorry, should I start? Who will control the slides?
Sir, I am.
Okay, so I think you don't need to show the first one. Please go to the next one. And that's what I'm talking about already. There are the functions of the immune system that enable creating a barrier, mostly skin and also the gut. I forgot to tell you the bacteria in the gut is very important. And they not only protect the gut, but also they produce some of the short-chain fatty acid that depends on the fiber intake in our diet that will produce certain fatty acid. They can modulate the immune system also, which I'll show in later slide. And then identifying the pathogens. This is very important. If our immune system is right, then the pathogen will be identified and they will be processed depending by MHC1 or MHC2. That is important. If it is invading virus, they can go to the cells and then it will be degraded. And the certain parts of the viral protein or etc. that will be shown on MHC1 on the membrane of the infected cells, and that is the kind of expression of the infected cell to die. And then the natural killer cell or T cell toxic cell will come and kill the infected cell. This is a suicidal way, and most of the cancer, if it happens, the cancer infected cell also do the same thing, but sometimes it doesn't work. And then another process is that if the invading bacteria actually infected antigen presenting cells like dendrites, etc., then they will process the virus, and then they will take certain parts of this virus and put into MHC2 complex, and it will go to the membrane, and then it will, that is the T cell, there is a muster in the immune cell, they will decide whether they will go for humoral response or to the cytokine response. Humoral response is antibody things. They will contact the B cells and they will give the necessary information, and then B cell will produce the antibody against that virus, and also some of the, that will be called effector cells, and then certain B cells will be as a memory cells and they will produce the antibody when they require. Next slide, please, because I don't want to. Next slide. Yeah. So I already talked about the innate immunity, that you have physical barriers, skin, mucus, membrane, and the cells are involved in it, in innate system, the monocyte, macrophage, dendritic cells, and the chemical barrier, the pH, the stomach is a very strong acid. It kills the germ, bacteria, etc. And certain lipids and also the mucus, they actually inhibit the invasion. And then you have the acquired immunity. This is a very specific kind of immunological warfare that is targeted against the invading virus, because they get, after the digestion, they get the certain parts of the virus, and then it is expressed on the antigen presenting cells by MHC2, and then it goes to, then it activate T cells, and then T cells with the help of B cells, they actually then give the information to produce the antibody, and kind of complement reaction, they will kill the virus anyhow. That is acquired immunity. But in case of COVID-19, that I'll come later on, that some of the antibody are not very, they can be produced, but they are not surviving that long because of certain problems. And also there are other problems which we don't see much antibody in COVID-infected patients. Next slide, please. Yeah. So actually, if I summarize whatever I say so far, that if there is the infection, viral infection, then it can go to macrophages or endothelial cells, or it can infect the dendritic cells, etc. And then these macrophages, etc., they will produce cytokines, prostaglandins from fatty acid that I will come later on, and reactive nitrogen, nitric oxides. And all these, if it is a enormous amount of cytokines, etc., they can affect the tissue like brain, skeletal muscle, etc., and then can lead to exaggerated production of cytokines can be a problem. But this can be controlled by T cells, because T lymphocyte is the really master of whole things. And then T lymphocyte can actually take these things and give it to B lymphocyte, say, well, wait and produce the antibody and kill that way, rather than doing like producing a huge cytokine storms that you see in COVID patient. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the immune system, as I mentioned, there are two things, MHC1 and MHC2, but innate situation, if you look at here, the dendritic cell, neutrophil, etc., they will pick the virus and they will degrade it, and then it can go to MHC2 cells, and then it will activate the B cells to produce the antibody, or it can go to, if it is MHC1, then it will go to the destruction, and it will be killed by cytotoxic T cells or by natural killer cells. But their natural killer cell is a non-specific killer. They like to kill any cells infected or diseased, and when the cell expresses to die, by putting the fragments of the infecting agent, the cancer change protein or virus, then these cells will be eliminated, as we see happens in inhibiting the cancer. Next slide, please. Okay, that's already mentioned that antigen-presenting cells and cytotoxic T cells, they work differently, and they want to the killing of the infected cell directly. Other is taking the fragments of the virus and give it to to T cells, and then through B cells, they produce the antibody. Then they will, antibody will, like a complement system, will kill the virus. Thank you. Next slide. Now, we have actually humoral versus cellular immunity. And if you look at here, the dominance of the humoral immunity when the cytokines like interleukin 4, 5, 6, 7 are expressed, and when interleukin 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, etc. is decreased, then it will go for antibody production. And when the cellular immunity is dominant, when this kind of red color cytokines are increased, whereas the decrease of those production. This is very important, not only from the COVID point of view, but for the old people also, because it is also very important. If you get vaccinated, doesn't mean that you will produce the antibody. That depends on a lot of things, actually. And this is produced mostly Th1 and Th2 cell. The T helper 1 and T helper 2 cells. And T helper 1 dominant situation is called cell-mediated immunity. That is the production of cytokine, etc., etc. Whereas the Th2 type cells activate interleukin 4, etc., and antibody production. And if we get old, then these things, this Th1 is predominant than Th2 cells. Even after vaccination, the old people may not produce the antibody because they have a more Th1 bias. But I'll talk about later how the diet can change this kind of bias. Next slide, please. Yeah, but you see, there is a modifier of this whole immune system. And this modifier age, the body weight, obesity plays a huge role. physical inactivity. And you probably know that in COVID patient, the most of the victims are also obese people. And the sex also important, male and female, genetical problems, smoking, and the gut microbiota is very important. Also, if we take a lot of antibiotics throughout life, our gut microbiota change. So our immune interaction with the gut microbiota will be highly compromised. Diet that I'll be talking about later, high fat diet, omega-3, omega-6, and minerals and vitamins, how they're doing, and certain medication that can change the gut microbiota and can have an effect on immune situation. And of course, the stress, pollution, and other things can affect it. And all these things I will be discussing, the triggering mechanism, whatever it is, then the pathway, the inflammation pathway that I talked about mostly so far, about the MSC1 pathway and MS2 pathway, and then how this dietary situation, genetics, etc., can modify it and ultimately gives different kind of immune response. Next slide, please. And if you look at here, there is no thing such called boosting immunity. I don't believe in that. Only thing we believe in that you should have appropriate nutrition to make sure that immune function is working. And immune function depends on so many things, macronutrient, like in kwashiorkor patient, those who have a protein problems, etc., they have also high inflammatory conditions, and they have a, kind of a cachexia, etc. And then different fatty acid actually have a very interesting role that if I have time, I will talk about it. And then of course the fibers, that actually changes the gut microbiota, and gut microbiota, saturated fatty acid, small chain fatty acid, they actually control so many immune cell function. And so the fiber is very important. And the vitamins, beta carotene, folic acid, vitamin B12, 6, etc., they have a positive effect if it is not deficit. And alcohol has a dampening effect, and certain nucleotides. And of course, the minerals, copper, iron, selenium, zinc, and others, they have a huge role in immune function. And they all are needed for the normal functioning of the immune system. And maintaining healthy, balanced diet is the best way to support immune function. And if we have this sort of nutrition that is coming from the food, not such as supplementation, if we don't have a deficit, then only deficit condition, if we should take supplement, otherwise no. The food source of these things are most important and most physiological in that sense. Next slide, please. And another thing happening as we get old, or if we have a less activity, physical activity, we call it immunosenescence. That is the depression of the immune activity. Because as I mentioned, the immune system is made up of several things, cells and the skin, etc., microbiome, etc. They actually depend on so many things. One is the aging of the system, and the food and nutrition, environment, etc. But here I catalog some of the things that if you see that T lymphocyte, they don't function properly, they are not produced in the right number, so there is a compromised immune response. So is the B lymphocyte, and dendritic cell is the most smart cell in terms of antigen presenting things, and they also can be have a problem with the decreased phagocytosis, decreased toll-like receptor P persistence, and decreased responsiveness, and decreased IFN production. That is very important to kill the virus. Next slide, please. And next slide, neutrophils, also very important, monocyte. As I mentioned, these are all part of the immunosenescence. If we don't maintain our immune system properly, then their activity will be compromised, and that will allow the invasion or infection of this. So as a nutrition or clinical nutritionist, our idea is to have inflammation is, what is inflammation? Inflammation is a response of the tissue. If you get cold virus, it will produce nasal secretion, etc., etc. But that is a inflammation is a response. It is not exactly that is virus is causing. What it is causing, it is our reaction to it. And if we are involved in a chronic inflammation situation like allergy or cardiovascular disease, in atherosclerotic condition, that we have several problems of oxidation, etc. And if our system is hypoactive, then it will allow the infection of the things. So as a nutritionist, a modern nutritionist, because we'll be facing not only COVID and in future there are more are coming, our interest is to expand this control inflammation hemostatic window so that we can absorb this inflation without too much explosion of inflation. This is a challenge for the dietitian and nutritionist in these days. Next slide, please. And again, coming back to this, because it's very important, I'll be talking about now about the COVID-2, not COVID-1. And these are the symptoms, as you see, the left side, the fever, dry cough, etc. But the most important is fever, and they're infecting mostly in the upper, lower chamber of the respiratory things, and then it goes to the lungs and then destroy it. But if you look at what is the immune part of it, immunity part of it, actually, that this is a phagocytocyte, if it is invading the antigen-presenting cells, and then antigen presenting cell process it and give it to MSC2, and then the B cell will come and produce the antibody and try to destroy the coronavirus. But if it is infecting any other cells, then it will go to MSC1, and this virus protein will be expressed on the MSC1, then cytotoxic CD8 cell will come and then will destroy the cells. But if it is infecting let's say for macrophages and dendritic cells and mast cell, etc., and there is a huge activation of Innate kappa B, and through Th7-1 they will produce a plethora of cytokines that you see in the patient in COVID, in severe COVID patient. And then what happens? All these cytokines, they will destroy the lung systems, etc., and is a fatality can happen. Next slide, please. And these cytokine storms that I mentioned, that is the production of excess cytokines, and that will lead to clotting, shocks, lung injury, cell death, immune paralysis, renal failure, and ultimately organ failure. And there is, if you look at the right side, that now these days, at the later stages, only dexamethasone steroid being used in order to stop the cytokine productions. But I'll be talking about the nutritional, how we can really handle this situation. Because drugs, steroids are okay, but there are a lot of side effects. It can produce diabetes. It has a lot of other problems, which is beyond the remit of this talk. But only thing you should know that the dexamethasone or any steroid, they can stop the cytokine production and can benefit at the severely affected patient. But question is, before we, if we know how the nutritional handling can be used to stop this cytokine production, I think that is the best thing in preventing this problem. Next slide, please. If you look at here, the cytokine storms and how many cells are involved, all cells are involved, and they produce different kind of damages. And we now know that the mechanism of cytokine productions and how cytokines are produced and how the dietary fat, vitamins, zinc, etc., how they're involved in this. And if we know, and if our body is quite well equipped with this sort of nutritional status, then probably we have a less of cytokine storms. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just to reiterate what I said, that the corticosteroids are being used that can affect on all these cells to produce the less of cytokines and then can stop the cytokine storms. But the problem is with the patient right now, we face it when to use the steroids, which phase, that is still is a big problem and can have a serious side effect. But if you look at here, the right side, that when any stimulus comes, the cell membrane phospholipid is broken down, phospholipase is activated, and the majority of all these icosanoids coming from arachidonic acid, that is the C24 carbon fatty acid, and that is we are hugely loaded right now. Because what happened in 1960s, the fatty acid, the mode has been changed. Because most of the people are dying at that time with cardiovascular death. They found there is a huge cholesterol level there. And they found that if we replace the saturated fat by omega-6 fatty acid, then it can reduce the cholesterol, so it could be better off the cardiac patients. In order to do that, we loaded our body with huge amount of omega-6 fatty acids. Like all the seed oil contain omega-6 fatty acid, linoleic acid, and the linoleic acid is the precursor of arachidonic acid, and that arachidonic acid is the major membrane phospholipid fatty acid, and they produce all sorts of prostaglandin and all the icosanoid that is responsible for allergic, immune, etc. reaction. But omega-3 fatty acid that is against works with arachidonic acid, we take less these days, and in India it is a pathetic situation. Our intake of omega-3 is less than 1 gram per day, whereas the arachidonic acid, that is the precursor, linoleic acid, we take tons. And in that way, we shifted arachidonic acid in our phospholipid membrane, and when the cell get activated, arachidonic acid is released, and through cyclooxygen, lipoxygen, and other pathway, we produce the hyperallergic prostaglandin and thromboxane that gives to cytokine production. So the best idea is to reduce the arachidonic acid level in the body by taking omega-3 fatty acid and also maybe oleic acid. That I'll talk later if somebody has any question. But the important thing is we have enough of arachidonic acid in our body that has led to hyper prostaglandin production. Next slide, please. As you may, this slide just to show, you don't need to go to the huge jungle of this thing, just to show that linolenic acid that is present in urad dal and mustard oil and spinach, that is the precursor of eicosapentaenoic acid, 22,5-N3 and 26-N3, they all downregulate the cytokine production. You see here, and so that is very important. And the dietary rich omega-3 fatty acid oil, mostly you have a linseed oil, and little bit in mustard oil and not much anywhere, whereas linoleic acid is present everywhere. And the omega-3, the LC-PUFA, eicosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoid you only can get from fish from cold water, mostly from the seafood. And these are all these omega-3 fatty acid actually in, we have tons of studies done in animal cell biology and a little bit in human situation. They showed from for PMN, monocyte, and antigen-presenting cells, they have all actually reduced the cytokine production if we can actually changes the membrane lipid by enhancing or increasing incorporation of omega-3 fatty acid. Next slide. And just coming back to here, we have a two essential fatty acid family, omega-6 and omega-3. Omega-3 fatty acid, as I say, is very little. In flax and walnut, we don't consume much. And flax you cannot use in a cooking oil, it gets oxidized. But Gandhiji used to drink flaxseed oil 1 cup every day. And this linoleic acid is the most of the vegetable oil. Ultimately, they are giving you arachidonic acid in the body, and these are the huge pro-inflammatory molecule, whereas the eicosapentaenoic acid, it can come from cold water fish, cod liver oil, salmon, etc. These are anti-inflammatory. Anti-inflammatory by several means, by their prostaglandin production and the regulation of the cytokine, etc. Next slide, please. And another thing is the leaky gut and leaky skin. And it is shown the omega-3 fatty acid, if there is inflammation, the gut, it become leaky and also the skin, and there is a barrier that easily invading particles can go in. But if you have a good of vitamin A and omega-3 fatty acid, these are quite sealed, and these are tight junctions, and that doesn't allow the invasion of the virus. Next slide, please. And also the vitamin D, there's a huge story about vitamin D, how they're involved in maintaining the immunocompetence. And vitamin D is very important for maturation of dendritic cells. And if you have a vitamin D deficiency, these are very common in India, that actually lead to immature dendritic cells. And that means immature phagocytosis of the virus. And that means is less of immune reactions and less production of antibody. And that could happen because of the vitamin D deficiency. And if you look at the right side, and it is showing that how because of lack of time, I cannot go details into that. It's very complicated, but only thing you should know that vitamin D is very important in order to maintain the chemotaxis, phagocytosis, and cytokine production, and keep your immunocompetence very well. Even if you take vaccine, it doesn't matter. If you are nutritionally compromised, the vaccine will not be that effective. Next slide, please. And in the copper, we have recently wrote an article on copper. Copper has been used for ancient time in India and others, and been used as a pot to keep the food all right, because copper can kill through redox system any microbes, etc., etc. And there are some studies done that copper sulfate can actually can be useful in a viral infection and things like situation. They work through the redox system. Also, they work through the replication of the viral situation. They can inhibit it and these things, but a lot of study still going on in order to see. But copper is very important in terms of redox systems. SOD enzyme, etc., is a part of metallothionein, is a part of immune response. It's very shown that copper deficiency will lead to immunocompromise. And although luckily copper deficiency is not much actually in the society these days. Next slide. And the antioxidant is I don't have time. It's a huge story about antioxidant, and it has been shown that the influenza virus and other viruses is always you get better off if you take antioxidant in terms of fruits and vegetables, etc. They have a lot of antioxidant, and that can stop the oxidative stress, and that can reduce the tissue injury, inflammation, apoptosis, etc. So it's very important that you should take a kind of a antioxidant in terms of fruits and vegetables. Next slide, please. And these are gut bacteria. This is very important because this gut bacteria profile we are changing all the time by taking different kind of medicine and all sorts of medicine. They have impact on our gut microbiome. We have 2 kilos of bacteria in our gut, and they are the very important players in terms of maintaining the blood pressure, to blood rheology, even the platelet function, but they are also important in terms of immune regulation. And the fiber are the most important food for this gut bacteria. And once they work on the polysaccharides or other things, polyphenol, etc., they produce polyphenol directly not involved, but they can change the microflora. They can produce the short chain fatty acid like C40, C4, C1 to C4, actually C4 mostly to C6. And they involved in epithelial immunity. It's very important to stop the bug to go into our system. It enhances the Treg cells. These are very important things. And butyric acid is very important, not only for mental depression. This is very important. Butyric acid also known in the mental depression, but also important in dendritic cells and B cells and so many things, and bone marrow regulator. So this is very, very important to keep our bacteria fine. That means we should not take willy-nilly antibiotic. We should not take the food or pollution, etc., that can destroy our gut microbacteria that we get. Most of them we get through when we're coming out of the mother in a normal way, not a cesarean way. And cesarean way is a highly compromised gut bacteria population. But these are people are lucky, those who are born proper way. The gut bacteria, their immune system is much better because of gut bacteria plays a huge role in terms of by producing the short chain fatty acid and then changing and regulating the immune systems for our beneficial purpose. Next slide. And the zinc. Zinc is very important as a gatekeeper of the immune function, I would say. And if there is a deficit, the thymus get destroyed, and the big problem with thymus TMH cell is the master immune cells. Their maturation is a big problem, and B cell, naive cell, B cell is very important to memorize it. It is not there, and Treg is and more Th17s. So zinc is very important. You can get zinc from different sources. I will talk later on. Next slide, please. And zinc also very important. If you look at the right side for the expression of MHC2, that is very important for antibody production. in the antigen presenting cells. If MHC2 cell is not there, even the vaccine will not produce the antibody. And this, when the invading virus, etc., they have to be, the part of their body parts should be fitted into MHC2, and they should express MHC2 part plus this virus. Then the whole immune reaction will start in terms of antibody production. And it seems like zinc deficiency can reduce the MHC2 production. And that means it's a less antibody response somebody will have. Next slide, please. So if I summarize this situation, that you need a balanced immune systems in terms of diet, in terms of your full lifestyles, and that will lead to that your immune system is ready to attack, but not overreact, that we see in the COVID-19 situation. And also it has the proper machineries to recognize the invading virus and the bacteria, whatever it is, and then it can process depending whether it should go for killing the infected cells, or it should go for an antigen and cytokine production, huge amount, or it can go for processing and giving to the antigen presenting cells. Then it will go to the T cells. And as I say, T cell is the master cell of the immune system. And then T cell would decide whether it will go for antibody production, or it will go for more cytokine production to kill the invading bacteria. And this all depends, and for that, we need certain kinds of diet. We need a full diet, definitely, but certain nutrients are very important than the others, like omega-3 fatty acid, zinc, copper, etc., vitamin C, and antioxidant. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And if you, again, coming back, okay, and this is okay, okay. And if you look at here, where you can get all these dietary sources, and I already cataloged the vitamin A, B6, 12, folic acid, C, and D, they can be found in full grains and milk, cheese, fish, meat, broccoli, etc. I'm not reading it all this. You can get the slide later on from the organizer and can see how can you improve your nutritional status. Next slide, please. And also zinc, as you see, for Bengalis, they should do shellfish and meat and some cereal, they have it. Vitamin E is alpha tocopherol is the only vitamin E, not the other tocopherol, not the gamma that is present in palm oil. It has no vitamin E activity, only alpha form has the activity. Selenium is very important. Iron is a deficit in India, it is very important. Copper you can get from shellfish, nuts, and liver. And essential amino acid, arginine, and other, they're very important for immunity, and essential fatty acid. But as I mentioned, you have to moderate this thing, lower the intake of omega-6 fatty acid, increase the omega-3 fatty acid from oily fish, and also you can take a supplement. Next slide, please. So coming back to the almost end slides, that in a COVID situation, there is two important MSC class 1 antigen presentation and MSC 2 class antigen presentation. This MSC 2 class antigen presentation is important to produce the antibodies, whereas the MSC class presentation is a kind of cells going for suicide, and it will be killed right away by cytotoxic T cells or natural killer cells, and that happened in cancer situation, or in a viral infection in certain cases, but mostly involved with intracellular proteins or deranged proteins. And these are important, and all these things, activity, and also important is TH1 or TH2, which will be more prominent. And TH2 is more towards antibody production, whereas the T helper 1 cells is more for cytokine production. That is also regulated by omega-3 fatty acid. And if we get older, 60, 65 plus that, we are more TH1 than TH2, that we produce more cytokines, more inflammation than antibody production. And T cell regulation is differently. So in a situation like this COVID, we have to be very careful in choosing our food, and in understanding the immune system is very complex and confusing. And it is that not only one nutrient, it is the plethora of nutrients. They work together in order to make sure there is an interaction and crosstalk between the innate immunity and the specific immunity, adaptive immunity, so that we can avert the thing we are facing right now, that is the fatality and the cytokine storm, etc., etc. Next slide, please. So ultimately coming to almost last slide, that we have to make sure that our immune system physical and biochemical barriers are there. So is a general immune response is there, not overreactive, but should be well responding, and not too much, not too less. And immune cells are very important in that system. That is granulocyte, lymphocyte, etc. And cell surface proteins are important. They're regulated by so many protein, and also intracellular regulation, very complex. I did not go there. I kept mostly for my medical students. And then you have an innate immune system. Physical barriers are important. In the gut, bacteria is important, and biochemical mechanism that I mentioned. And the adaptive, there's a specific immune system. Then either you can get to herd immunity or you through the vaccination. But the herd immunity in terms of COVID is a question mark, because there is a problem with the spike protein. There is some kind of mutation. They produce the antibody which does not live longer. And also the memory B cells, they are very weak and slow to grow. So the herd immunity, how much it will be successful at the moment, we don't know. But whatever we know in terms of nutritional point of view, if you have a appropriate amount of vitamin E in the body and the minerals, then you can avoid this sort of exaggerated expression of inflammation, but you can kill this invading virus through your innate system. You can inhibit and kill, and also lately by producing the antibody, at least in the adaptive system, you can counteract this kind of menace. Next slide, please. So with this, I would end my lectures. I just try to give you the overview of the role of nutrition, and try to give you certain, the immune system is a very complex and very confusing and highly interrelated, and it can be also sometimes beneficial. It is very important for our survival, but we should not overdo it. And as I said earlier, there is no such thing as immune boosting. There is a such thing as optimum immune situation. So we should have immune response system is ready to work all the time, so that we are always exposed to all sorts of foreign entities, but we are surviving. And we know much more about how COVID-19 is infecting us through different mechanisms, and how when they're invading it, what they do, and what sort of system we should have in place in terms of stop this menace. Because at present, at the moment, as I speak, there is no medication against COVID-19. There is no anything at the moment, no vaccine. Only the repurpose of the old antiviral drugs are being used, and here and there a little bit positive effect, etc., etc. But there is no clear-cut any medication at the moment that can be actually prescribed. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Rai. Am I audible?
Yes, I'm all right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your lucid presentation. You have actually touched many complicated things in a very lucid manner. You discussed the functions of immune system, particularly the innate immunity and adaptive immunity, importance of herd immunity. You touched upon at the end of your presentation, and particularly the importance of fatty acid and omega-3 fatty acid in relation to cytokine production. Then vitamins A, D, E, minerals, copper, zinc, selenium, importance of fiber, also you've touched upon, and also important of arginine. All these specific nutrients are getting special importance in this type of a situation, COVID-19, over other micronutrients, what I understand. And we have few questions as we are running short of time. So I will select 2-3 questions for you. I hope you will not mind to answer.
Oh, it's okay, no problem. I will try my best.
Yeah. The first question is by some M. Mukherjee, and the question is, how is malnutrition related to COVID-19? How is malnutrition related to COVID-19? Is there any quick screening method to eliminate malnutrition states of the poor having corona symptoms?
Yeah,
Is there,
it's a very good question, because if you look at the COVID-19 fatality in Europe and other countries, they're mostly the very old people, as a nutritionally compromised, and those who live in a very old home and the hospitals. Nutrition is not almost there, and they suffer the huge blow from the COVID-19. And also the problem is not only malnutrition, is a suboptimum nutrition. It's very difficult we need to screen those things. And it can be screened by doing some blood tests and looking at certain indices we know of, that whether the certain persons, the persons are deficit in vitamins and proteins and lipids. And obviously it's a major work at the moment we know of, that how the malnutrition or suboptimal nutrition can be addressed in order to make them immunocompetent. As I mentioned, the malnutrition is a big problem, and the malnutrition in the old people, they have a digestive problem. They cannot eat or they cannot take the vitamins and the normal food. And those who are having a kind of a, the people with a ventilator, etc., they ultimately suffer nutritionally huge, and they cannot cope with this sort of cytokine storms, and they are expressing much more this. And of course, there is we do in our department, clinical nutrition, we have a different system to see whether there is our problem is not in the society, but the old people and those who are in the old home and in the hospital. How to stop the malnutrition in the hospital is a huge project going on in UK and Norway and etc. Because we now know that if the nutrition is right for the people in the hospital, their hospital stay can be reduced. And the same thing for the COVID patient. And this government is spending a lot of money how to enhance the proper nutrition for the old people and for patient also, so that they can recover much quicker than being judged by medicine. And the medicine also doesn't work if the nutrition is not there. As I mentioned, the vaccine will not work if your system that I mentioned is defective.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Roy. Another question is, what is the role of alcohol in immunological function? This is by Dr. Durgesh Ranjan Kaur.
Okay, alcohol as a chemical substance, ethanol, but people don't drink alcohol like that. Those who are strong drinker, they do probably, but for red wine, etc., the alcohol, there is also non-alcohol part, that is polyphenols, resveratrol, etc. They can be beneficial, but alcohol as such has a dampening effect. It gives oxidative stress in the body, and it can increase the oxidative potential that can lead to cytokine production, etc., etc. So it is a kind of mixed situation. So if somebody drinks red wine or anything, then there is a lot of antioxidant and polyphenols that can actually changes the microflora. We know very well now, resveratrol does, and that can be beneficial. But at the other side, the alcohol itself, if it is taking too much, it can produce acetaldehyde and then other component, then that can create a problem. But only for those who are taking too much alcohol.
Thank you very much. One more question, and it's a very interesting question. I think you will like it. How much dose require of DHA and EPA as preventive for cytostorm?
Okay. You see, I did not mention other aspect of the omega-3 fatty acids, the resolution of immune response. Resolution is very important. That means once the immunological interaction starts, inflammation, etc., then it has to be stopped. we call resolution. That is mostly dimethylamine, protectin, neuroprotectin or protectin, and other compounds that is coming from DHA. Whereas the EPA is directly competing with arachidonic acid in order to produce less of prostaglandins of 2 series and 4 series of leukotrienes, etc., etc. Those are more pro-inflammatory. Now, this gentleman's question is how much dose they should take. Of course, depends on the dose, because we believe that these 2 fatty acids are very important, and they play a huge role from evolution to whatever we are today in terms of brain development, eye situation, and the skin, etc., etc. And the requirements is different, depend on your age and your activities. And when it comes to India, the omega-3 intake in terms of preformed omega-3 like eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA and DHA is pretty low because we don't take much seafood. We only take linolenic acid, alpha linolenic acid through what do you call it, mustard oil or spinach, etc., etc. Otherwise, nothing. So in that condition, I would go for much more than 1,000 milligram of EPA DHA combined, and then you can see effect within a month or so. Because our body has a lot of fat, and this fatty acid has to go and saturate and would be in equilibrium with all the body cells, including the immune cells. So you can see there is a time frame in terms of accretion of this fatty acid with the different cell types. Who will take first? It will go to adipose, liver, brain, etc. They have a transport system. If you are interested, you can read my books, Cellular Proteins and Their Fatty Acid. We mentioned that the kinetics of this, but obviously at the moment, I think I will go for EPA DHA 1,000 milligram per day, and it should be taken with lipids, after lipid, because it needs chylomicron. Don't take in empty stomach; it's meaningless and is no use actually.
Thank you, Professor Dattarai. We are really running short of time. I am having a few more questions also. I will just request you, if it is possible for you, to just stay with us. We will continue till 6:30 or 6:45, maybe maximum 7 p.m. Indian time. And if I get time at the end, maybe 2-3 more questions I can ask you. Thank you very much from my behalf.
I'll do my best. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll be having our next speaker. Hello, I am audible. We will be having our next speaker, Dr. Debaprasad Chattopadhyay. Dr. Chattopadhyay, can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I'm getting you.
Yeah, okay. So again, a pleasant duty for me.
Last one. Yes.
To introduce Professor Dr. Chattopadhyay. Dr. Debaprasad Chattopadhyay is working as Scientist G and Director at ICMR National Institute of Traditional Medicine, Karnataka since August 2016, after serving 24 years at ICMR Virus Unit, Kolkata. His research field includes ethnomedicines, microbiology and virology against difficult to treat infections through documentation and validation of purity, safety, and potency of traditional practices of Indian tribes with molecular mechanism of action in vitro and in animal model. He has established personal contact with diverse ethnic communities to document and validated their age-old healthcare practices to translate traditional information into medical innovation. Dr. Chattopadhyay is having 134 publications in journals and books. He has 8 patents to his credit. He has supervised 12 PhD students and completed 17 national task force projects on ethnomedicines of marginalized communities in India. He is the editor of many journals of repute. Dr. Chattopadhyay has been conferred with several awards and recognitions. I request Dr. Chattopadhyay to please start your deliberation.
Very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I convey my sincerest thanks and gratitude to NSIHM Authority, particularly the Director, Dr. Subhashish Maiti, I also convey my sincerest regards to the speakers, Dr. Professor Ashim Daktarai, Colonel Pramodji, and Dr. Devnath Chaudhary, who is moderating today's seminar. You see, we have already listened a very fascinating and very informative talk from Dr. Daktarai, and he has covered almost all sectors of nutrition, and thus I will start with COVID-19. What is actually the COVID-19? Basically, I am working with the biology of a virus for last 20 plus years. So as a virologist, as a viral biologist, I will give some input and I will share some of the features of this particular virus. As you know, the viruses, there is a definition of virus, but when I start my career, I do not find any good definition of virus. That to find out a virus definition, people has to go to study at least 4 or 5 pages of the chapter. But now in 1997 and then in 1999, we put forward a precise definition of viruses, and mostly now it is very easy to define a virus. Actually, viruses are acellular, ultramicroscopic nucleoprotein particles. They contain gene strands of either DNA or RNA, but never both. And they may have or have not a lipid envelope. That means they are naked. They may be naked or they may be enveloped. They are obligate intracellular parasites, and they are very host specific, tissue specific, and root specific. They have definite character. Virus utilizes host cell machinery to propagate because they are acellular and metabolically inert. They cause ailments as benign as wart, as irritating as common cold, or as bloody as African fever, and you know about the COVID-19. Some of these viruses can spread very easily through the root, just like COVID-19, and some can kill very swiftly. And mostly they don't have any cure or vaccine except a few. Now, characteristically, viruses have several invasion strategies, and each virus strain has its own unique configuration to fit on the surface molecule of the host to enter the host cell by precisely fitting their molecules. Now, the major evolutionary advantage of this biological material or biomaterial, you can say, or bioparticles, they have genetic variations, they have variety of transmission, and they have efficient replication, ability to persist within the hosts. But they all have a definite life cycle, and that's why most of the adult viral diseases neither require a vaccine nor require any drug. Secondly, as a consequence, viruses adapt of life and occupied numerous ecological niches with widespread diseases not only in human but livestock and plants, even in bacteria. Now, what is COVID? COVID is an infectious disease. Co stands for corona, V for virus, I for infection, D for disease. So it is an infectious disease caused by unique virus called as novel virus. Discovered in, rather starts its action or come into existence about the end of November 2019. What is the family history of this particular pathogen? It's a corona viridae, belongs to corona viridae family of the order Nidoviralis. Diameter is 65 to 125 nanometer, and it has a single stranded RNA genome, which is positive sense. That means this genome have transcribed into messenger RNA. It itself acts as a messenger RNA. That's why the virus do not enter into the nucleus of the host cell for multiplication. It's a single-stranded virus, enveloped and positive sense. It has 4 subgroups. 2 are mainly birds and animals. Those are gamma viridae and delta viridae. And alpha and beta, there are 7 viruses, including coronavirus 2, belongs to alpha, 2 belongs to alpha, and 5 belongs to beta viridae. Now, this SARS coronavirus, it has, with coronavirus 2, it has 3 members in existence. One is discovered as SARS coronavirus, now called as coronavirus 1. It was also in China in 2002-3 when I was in ICMR Virus Unit, Calcutta, and we were ready, because being a virologist, we were ready to start work on it. But fortunately or unfortunately, that virus do not enter India. Okay. Then comes the 2012-13, a Middle East respiratory syndrome from camel, another spillover virus from camel. It has the same sort of activity. And third one is again from China, SARS coronavirus 2. SARS, influenza A, MERS coronavirus, they can cause acute lung diseases, leading to acute respiratory distress syndrome, and also the pulmonary failure to death. Now, coronavirus, I have already mentioned why it is corona, because in Latin word, coronum means the crown. It has the crown-like structure in its uppermost as a projection, is the outer part of it as a projection. And that projection is nothing but glycoproteins on the envelope. Genomic characterization revealed that probably the virus is spillover from the bat to the rodents. Now people are telling about its similarity, its homogeneity between bat and human virus, as well as bat and armadillo and other animals also, some rodent also, especially they are tracking the history of changes of this virus into the animals to the men. So gene sources of alpha coronaviridae and beta coronaviridae are from bats to rodents to human being probably, and it has a round to elliptical or pleomorphic form, and approximately diameter already I mentioned, varied from 40, and they are sensitive to ultraviolet radiations, heat, etc. Now, how it enters to the human host, I will come later on. And you know about the pandemic, even till today morning, the scorecard was the infected people was nearly 1.02 crore globally, killing 5.03 lakhs death, 03 lakhs people across the globe, spreading over 219, now called as 219 countries on 30th June today. And currently, at all you know, there is neither any specific antiviral nor any vaccine. Now, we do not know whether it is a gift or not, but it is our guest. Virus is our guest, and we are the host. Do you know any guest killing the host? This is a question. So virus is not attacking human being for killing. They are attacking human being. Initially, what happened? The virus loses its host, spill over from an animal. So it's an animal zoonotic virus. When it spill over to human, it is going to search for a new habitat. So it was very aggressive initially to infect very swiftly. Why swiftly? Because the route it has chosen. You see, we know about HIV. HIV was a behavioral disease. You can stop the behavior, but you cannot stop the breathing. You cannot stop to talk. And these are the way through the virus, through which the virus is infecting us very swiftly. So till date, animal reservoir has not been elucidated. People are claiming something, and its age is only 6 months. So a lot of things we have to know. And regarding the disease, the discovery of drug and vaccine, I am telling you, please remember coronavirus 1 of 2002-3, still we do not have any drug or vaccine. Coronavirus, another MERS virus, 2012-13, still we do not have any vaccine or specific drug. Now you can think about the drug or vaccine. So what are the strategies we have to go? Next slide. Now this is the slide to see the key reservoir and mode of transmission. You see how the transmission comes from the bat to the interspecific transmission to the rodent and other animals, through camels and through again rodents. And the birds and other animals, they can go, this group is called gamma and delta viridae, delta coronaviridae, and these are alpha and beta viridae. Now, what are the characters? Being 30 kilobase of genome, it encodes 4 major structural protein. One is the spike protein through which it launches or attaches, just like a chair in your home. We have receptors in our body. And those receptors, the spike protein fixed with those receptors so that it can fuse with the membrane of the host and then go inside the endosomes. And second is the membrane protein. Third is the envelope protein. And fourth is the nucleocapsid protein. Spike protein facilitates entry of coronavirus 2 into the target cell. What are those target cells? I'm coming later on. It has a short intracellular tail and a transmembrane anchor with a large ectodomain consists of receptor binding, 2 domain S1 and S2. One is receptor binding, other is membrane fusing. This S2 subunit is not available with other coronaviruses, and this can be the target of a drug, but not the S1, because S1 is related with the heart and also with the activity of our blood pressure control. Sequence analysis of surface protein, rather we get spike protein, showed that it has 75% identical or similarity with the coronavirus 1 spike protein. That means 25% is different, and that 25% should be specific for this coronavirus 2. Second, receptor binding motif in S protein is conserved, means that is different from others between our coronavirus 1 and 2, suggesting that the coronavirus use the same host receptor for cellular entry, that is angiotensin converting enzyme 2 as the receptor. Now, what is the life cycle? I'm trying to tell it in a very, or trying to describe in a very lucid manner. You see, this is the virus. Virus have to attach. If someone visit in your home, what you will do? You give a chair to sit. Similarly, the virus got the chair, and through this ACE2 receptor, it goes inside, it's fused with the receptor membrane, then uncoated and go inside the cytoplasm. There, it undergoes several changes. S protein bind to ACE2, changes its conformation or configuration, attaches with the host membrane, come into inside, then the RNA releases, and viral RNA undergoes translated into 2 polyproteins, 1A and 1AB. They has definite role. After translation, they uses into rough surface endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus, and finally multiplied in a huge number, then assembled together and form the vesicle, undergoes endocytosis and release the viruses to infect the next healthy cell. Now, clinical presentation, as you all know, because internet as well as media has been flooded with millions of literature, millions of published papers, and mostly the people, those who never worked on virus, never isolated a virus, and never touched a virus. So you understand the information which we got. Very few people are capable of dealing with viruses, particularly this type of virus which can spread easily through the root, which is a very essential route because we have to breathe. Now, the clinical presentation of a patient, there are fever, headache, there are hemoptysis, cough, malaria, shortness of breath actually is the major symptom. If you have this major symptom, you have to report to the doctor. Now, my previous speaker, Professor Asim Dr. Rai, already described the immunity in a very lucid and very understandable manner. So I'm not going in detail. One thing I am just asking to you to look into this. Infection of SARS coronavirus varies from benign to fatal. About 90% right now in our laboratory, we are getting 90% asymptomatic people, not patient. Because when there is no symptom, he or she cannot be the patient. Okay. Now 90% infected individual is asymptomatic or develop mild upper airway symptoms. And that symptoms is very mild because in upper airway, we do not have many cells, we do not have any organ. So if infection is there, symptom cannot come until the virus go to the lung. And 8% develop pneumonia and ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, which require ventilation and ICU. And only 2% undergoes fatal complications. Now in asymptomatic and both symptomatic and asymptomatic, viral shedding begins 2 to 3 days before the onset of symptom, and infectivity decline after 10 to 11 days of symptom appearance. But the virus is detectable into the survivor up to 37 days, from 20 to 37 days. These are viral debris. Because machine cannot say you, RT-PCR cannot tell you whether the virus is alive or not. Okay, and you see, viral diseases are a very peculiar thing because viruses have a definite life cycle. After a certain period of time, it will inactivate or come out from the body. In case of influenza, if you take medicine, you will take 7 days to recover. If you do not take, you may take 1 week. And same is true for HSV, in which I have worked a lot, 14 days. Then other viruses are there also. Okay. Now, immunology of COVID. It's a compilation by 3 people. The paper is approved on April 2020. It's still not reviewed. It is coming in allergy, pediatric allergy, and immunology. Here also, we found that there are 3 stages: asymptomatic, mild symptomatic, and acute symptom. Now, asymptomatic, that means the people are infected. They can be recovered within 7 to 14 days time period. Mild infection also recovered within 14 days. But the acute infection has fate like 2 fate. One is they can recover even after ventilation, or they can do not recover during ventilation period, even multi-organ failure, and all other things happen. I'll show you 2 slides for that. To see, this is actually the SARS coronavirus entered through nose, mouth, and eyes. Now, in nose, mouth, and eyes, when it goes to the airway tube, there are 2 types of cells. One is called as goblet cell, other is called as ciliated cell. You know, goblet cells secrete mucus, and ciliated cell helps that to come out. They are always expelling the things from the airway tube. Now, the virus can attack these 2 types of cells because these 2 cells has several receptors. Till date, there are 6 receptors identified for this virus. The major one is ACE2, second is transmembrane serine protease 2, third is furin, and there are others also. Okay, so the virus has the ability to bind it any one of them, but the major receptor is ACE2. In case of child, the ACE2 receptor is less in number and not functional well. That's why the children infection is less with this particular virus, or virus cannot infect. There was a question by someone, I think I have seen that child are not affected severely. Exception is there, but usually it happens to be. Now what happened in healthy system, our lung alveoli contain 2 types of cell. One is type 1 alveolar cell. This is thin layered cell responsible for gas exchange. And the second is type 2 alveolar cell. They secrete certain surfactant that helps the thin cells to keep apart so that they cannot overlap each other. The virus attacks these 2 types of cells, and therefore the pressure in the respiratory system or inability to take air or exchange of air do not take place, and that is actually the major symptom of this virus. Next. In case of infected individuals, what happened? The spike protein of the virus goes to the receptor and finally goes to the receptor binding and on alveolar cell type 2 to allow the virus to inject its RNA. RNA undergoes division by taking control of the infected cell to produce numerous copies and release the progeny virion into alveolus to infect the nearby healthy cells. Now, in case of moderate or severe infection, what happened? When immune cells attack infection area, some healthy alveolar cells kill, resulting hindrance of gas exchange due to collapse of alveoli due to loss of surfactant of type 2 cells, and blood get less oxygen due to loss of type 1 cell also, and more fluid enter into the alveolus. What happened immunologically? After infection, type 2 cell releases inflammatory signal to recruit macrophage. Now macrophage releases cytokines that cause the vasodilation to allow more cells to reach to the injury site to help the host to recover from the infection. But fluid accumulation starts inside the alveoli. Here actually the symptom starts with dry cough and fever, and when fluid accumulation starts, shortness of breath and pneumonia development starts. Now fluid dilutes surfactants further, triggering alveolar collapse and decreased gas exchange with increased breathing. It requires hospitalization. Now the neutrophil is recruited at the infection site to release ROS that destroy the infected cells, but it doesn't happen. What happened there? The virus produce a network with the dead cells and these neutrophil and other immunological cells to make a network called as netosis, and in that network these neutrophils are trapped, so they cannot able to help to the host. Now collapse of alveolus due to damage of type 1 and type 2 cell that cause ARDS. The patient need intensive care unit or require ventilation and life support. Then inflammation goes further. If it is severe, the protein-rich fluid then enters the bloodstream and travel to the whole body, causing the systemic inflammatory response syndrome, which we call that SIRS. Now SIDS may lead to septic shock, to multi-organ failure, to death. But if complication is rather less and unrelated to COVID-19 may occur here also, and with proper care, some patient may recover. Now, in severe cases, what happened? You see, this is an example here. In 15 to 20% cases, immune response to lung inflammation cause cytokine storm. Why? Because you see, when a pathogen enters into our body, our innate immune system starts action to resolve the case. If the innate immune system failed to resolve the case, then the adaptive immune system also failed to find out how it reacts. Rather, the adaptive immune system releases cytokines like a storm, and that creates an anomalous situation or a dangerous situation for the host called a cytokine storm. That causes not only cause the damage of the body's own cells, but also try to defend the virus but fail, which may lead to rapid deterioration of non-comorbid patients. Collapse of large number of alveoli that require ventilation. In acute respiratory distress, the surfactant of type 2 cells, which I already mentioned, which help the alveoli to avoid collapsing or for good functioning of the gas exchange, is diluted, and with cellular debris, it impairs gas exchange process, leading to reduced oxygen to our blood. In most severe cases, the protein-rich fluid from lungs enter the bloodstream, resulting in septic shock with multi-organ failure, the main cause of death for many people who succumb to a COVID-19 infection through systemic inflammatory response syndrome. Now, what are the way out? Research and development, the role. Test. First of all, we understand about the virus. The virus was aggressive. Now, day by day, the virus is going to be asymptomatic. Secondly, virus never kill the host until the host is doing something against the guest. So here also, those people are in complicated situation, those immunity is in either high alert or are in a lower situation or are in a situation which is not normal. Now malnutrition and all other things are responsible for this, which has been covered by my previous learned speaker, Professor Oshim Dattorai. And here I will just mention our duty as a testing center also. We are using the most advanced protocol and testing hundreds of thousands of samples per day. We have nearly completed 25 to 30,000 tests during this time period. We have short-term goal, we have long-term goal, and people are also developing short-term public surveillance tools to detect cases, isolation of treatment using molecular methods. Many are developed and many are underway of development, and many can be accepted yet because this virus will not go easily. And second, the long-term is point-of-care diagnostics to health workers. And for treat, identify and develop the therapies in collaboration. I already mentioned specific single drug therapy will not be possible for this dangerous pathogen. The way through which the virus entered the human body is the main area to tackle. Actually, to control viral infection, there are three ways. One is public health service or public health surveillance. Already we all know, all the government as well as WHO, CDC, everywhere, we know that physical distancing, number one. Number two, use of triple layered mask and washing of hand for 20 seconds each hour is the three things. And another thing is that your health is yours, not the government, not anybody's. You don't think that your government will save you. Even your parent cannot save you. You have to save yourself. You do not quarrel about the carrot, whether carrot is a homeopathy or allopathy. You consider your sympathy into the health, onto your health, and take the steps that can be controlled and that can under your control. That is the food and your overall health situation, food digestion and all other parts. So what you eat is actually matters now. Identify and develop therapies in collaboration. We need safe therapy, which is active only to the COVID-19, quick production of millions of doses and delivery in low resources. You know, many people are claiming many things to discover. All are Nobel laureates now. But in last 50 years, since 1972, no new antiviral drug was discovered. All discovery, actually why antiviral drug discovery is very difficult? Because viruses contain nucleic acid only. And we have also nucleic acid. So to kill nucleic acid, to damage nucleic acid, we need nucleic acid analog. And there are 40 analogs already exist, prepared from 2 different types of bases, purine and pyrimidine. That's why new antiviral are not coming to the market. Secondly, vaccine will come, but vaccine against single-stranded RNA virus is not a matter of joke. Vaccine need to be proved before it comes to for public use in a vast majority of population. For developing a vaccine like single-stranded RNA virus takes 8 to 14 years time. So don't feel safe. You are not safe. You have to be safe on your own by going through these things. Particularly, first one is public sector, public health measures, and second is vaccination. And third is the drug development, preventive or curative. So identify potential vaccine or monoclonal antibody. People are doing high efficacy in community protection. They are trying to do it, but in a very short period of time, it is not very easy to develop a vaccine. It will take further another 6 months time minimum. Then to prevent transmission is the way, and to be healthy with a healthy immune system is your role. How you can do it. First of all, scientists around the globe are trying to understand how SARS coronavirus spread. Whatever we know, we came to know the virus spread takes place through respiratory droplet. When you are talking, a lot of droplets are coming out. When you are sneezing and coughing, if you see that a person is sneezing and coughing, you must not go to him. But if you see a person do not have sneezing, coughing, he is asymptomatic, you do not know. You go to and talk to him, and through that, during talk, the respiratory droplet comes out of mouth. It may travel into 6 to 9 feet and into that surrounding air, actually, if it is the closed room. So the chances of infection is much more, and each and every droplet may contain hundreds to thousands of virus particles. Now, it affects lung and airways. It may symptomatic, fever, cough, and sore throat. It may be asymptomatic but transmissible and cause pneumonia to organ failure to death. Now, which cells are involved? I have already mentioned. The research showed that Human Cell Atlas Consortium database of single cell RNA sequencing from 20 different tissues indicate that in human being, lung, nasal cavity, cornea, intestinal lining, heart, kidney, and liver contain these 2 receptor sites for this virus, 2 very prominent receptors, ACE2 and transmembrane serine protease 2. ACE2 and transmembrane serine protease 2 activate virus entry in cells of those organs and inner lining of nose. This is the initial infection route. Mucus producing goblet and ciliated cell have the highest level of ACE2 and transmembrane protease protein. Some of the repurposed drug people are trying, but they are not, none of them are very specific drug. Maybe it can help in life saving, but not preventing, neither preventing the virus nor curing you after infection in a mild dose. Healthy immune system is the most important weapon against infectious disease, including COVID, where no effective vaccine or curative medicine is available, which is already mentioned by my previous learned speaker. Several vitamins and minerals he has told about, and trace elements are known to be essential for normal function of our immune system. I am giving you certain example and certain papers in which these things are described. Supplementation of many vitamin and trace elements have positive impact on enhanced immunity in viral infection. As a whole, you have to think about immunity. But people used to tell immune boosting. Immune boosting means what? How does immunity work? If you know, immunity is only boost when an antigen is inserted into the body. So without an antigen insertion, you cannot boost your immunity. You can maintain the healthy cells and healthy body by your food, by your day-to-day practice. Here also, vitamins and minerals have a definite role. Say for example, A and D, they help in humoral immune response in the pediatric patient after influenza vaccination. Zinc, there is information. Zinc, he has antivirus activity by inhibiting RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. It's a viral enzyme. Selenium, it has got positive response after influenza vaccination. Different micronutrients, some herbals and probiotics are effective for prevention and treatment of viral infection. Actually, food has a definite role to play because your microbiome or your digestive tract is actually your immune systems. Your immune system is not your blood. Your immune system is your gut. So healthy gut actually gives the healthy results. Several nutraceuticals and probiotics have supportive role in enhancing immune response also. Now, in this pandemic, COVID-19 as an infectious disease caused by this novel. Why it is novel? Because this virus is a first time identified with a novel character. Became a major global threat due to its pandemic nature and silent transmission ability. Strong immunity and healthy body can only be brought by optimal nutrition. In general, nutritional status of individual for long been considered as indicator of resilience against destabilization. dietary ingredients are significant determinant of gut microbial or microbiota, and consequently can set the characteristics of a person's immune response. Nutritional deficiencies of energy, protein, and specific micronutrient are associated with decreased immune function and increased susceptibility. Here I mention one thing: any viral infection damages huge amount of protein. So protein diet, protein-rich diet in preventing viral infection is one of the major criteria. Remember this. Stress, anxiety, and dietary habits. Habits means have it. It requires time to change one habit to other. So changes in dietary pattern during the outbreak could also be driven by your fear, by your anxiety. Compelling evidence has showed that dietary habits are affected by stress, distress, and emotional disturbance. The elevated distress level are associated with unhealthy dietary pattern and poor quality of diet. Another thing you see, we spend very little on our food, on our diet, because people from outside have not seen, cannot see the diet pattern. Okay. So hence understanding the optimal dietary framework and patterns became imperative to combat this COVID pandemic. And this is nutritional framework, globally, nationally, community-based, and individuals. Food utilization, changes in eating pattern, and physical activity, inactivity to activity are very much required. You can read this article of Naja et al. In European Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Then I'll just mention dietary pattern, already sir mentioned. So try to eat well-balanced meal, avoid irregular snack, choose food rich in vitamins, rather fresh food if possible, and some vitamin minerals also, including zinc and iron, like citrus fruit, dark green vegetables, etc., etc. Maintain healthy lifestyle to exercise, home exercise, at least 30 minutes, 5 days a week, regular sleep, and if possible meditation, avoid smoking, alcohol, and drug, and refrain from spreading misinformation related to nutrition and dietary intake during this COVID pandemic time. It is your own, and if you do it individually, it comes to the community. If it's come to the community, it goes to the national. If it is come to the nation, other nation will learn, so it will be global. Now, this already described by my previous speaker, impact on dietary composition. So I'm skipping these things. And dietary spices, you know, our ancestors know very well. Our grandma knows very well that tulsi, cinnamon, black pepper, shunti, that's dry ginger, dietary spices are potent aids of strength, but these cannot be your drug because they are very short-lived in your plasma, in your body. To strengthen the body's immune system against harmful viruses, many of the bioactive compounds in these spices are known to modulate immune system or boost you mentally and physically, thereby your immunity work it at normal level, and they may have some antiviral activities also. So nutrition advice for adults for COVID-19, WHO website, you will get it. And for elderly also, the calcium, vitamin C, vitamin D, folate, zinc, these are the prescription, and the good prescription has already been prescribed by Professor Dr. Rai in previous lecture. So I'm not going to tell in detail. And you see, there was a question by one of my previous colleague, Professor Dr. Muspika Mukherjee, the malnutrition impact on COVID. Yes, malnutrition impact not only in COVID, in everything malnutrition, because mal means malified. When nutrition is depleted into the body, if your body is depleted with the proper nutrition, the body is actually the playground for viruses, for pathogens. And viruses is the enemy which you do not see in the naked eye. So it is very difficult to fight with it. Secondly, virus is not like bacteria. They have no cell. So it is when acellular, then anything you take against viruses, it will go to your cell to damage your cell. The data reveals that 4 hotspot states, namely Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, and Gujarat, the percentage of anemia among adults was highest in Gujarat, followed by Delhi, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra. you can correlate, Muspika, why the malnutrition is so important. Earlier studies on other infectious diseases also suggest the relationship between anemia and respiratory diseases. So these are some of the diet you can look about, you can look for. These are all the actually, can you tell me why the market, vegetable and fruit market, is infested with hundreds of products? Because we should take it, otherwise not. If you keep your car without painting in the downside also, in the whole area of the car, after some time, if the car is in the open air, it will go to rust. Similarly, our body can also rust. So take the colorful food as possible as per you. These are some of the references through which I have prepared this with a very less time. I do not have enough time to go through it. Otherwise, I can able to prepare a more attractive lecture. I do not know. I have shared some of my things with you. Now, if you have any question, you can call and you can ask. And last of all, I convey my sincerest gratitude to all of you for giving me the opportunity to share some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chattopadhyay. Can you hear me, Dr. Chattopadhyay?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I am hearing you.
Yeah. This is a nice presentation. Is a elaborate presentation. You have practically covered everything right from the introduction on the virus and how it transmits and what it does and what will be the role of nutrition and how it affects immunity, what prevention has to be taken, everything. Wonderful presentation. And many questions I am having because shortage of time. For the time being, I'm like to put just 2-3 questions, and I will request you to stay with us.
Oh, sure.
If we get time, we will have some more questions at the end. The first question is by Puvali Dhar. Is this, is there any role of ACE2 polymorphism in the severity of disease?
Till the work is going on this, yes, there should be some role, because you see, ACE2 is expressed in human being, expressed in adult, and it has different functions. Now, when the virus occupied this particular receptor, it has got particularly ACE2 to set into the ACE2 receptor. The virus uses 2 domains of its capsid protein. One is S1 and another is S2. S2 is dangerous in this case. And probably ACE2 polymorphism have some role, but until and unless the study is completed, we cannot say right now very dominantly or very accurately that yes, it has role. But there is some role definitely. Otherwise, such type of complication cannot arise.
Thank you. Another question by Nilita Das. She wanted to know whether BCG or polio vaccine has any impact on COVID-19.
Great. This is a very good question, and I have faced this question previously also in my TV talk. And you see, in 2011, we have published a paper in PLOS Pathogen, working with BCG vaccine with Professor Gobardhan Das of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. We showed that it was seen that BCG vaccine coverage, the country which was covered by BCG vaccine, has less number of deaths, but now I cannot say the less number of people or less number of infected people. Infection rises and infection grows, but you see, prevention of death in this virus compared to other countries, the people, those who covered with BCG vaccine or the countries which covered with BCG vaccine has less mortality till date. But the relationship between BCG vaccine and COVID-19 is the work is still going on. Some people are working in India also, and 3 to 4 laboratories of the world is also looking into it. Let's hope if there is any strong relationship, it will come out within another 2-3 months.
Thank you, Dr. Chattopadhyay, for the timing. This is all. As I said, if we get time, I will come with few more questions. Thank you very much on my behalf.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker will be Colonel Pramod Dahitule, and Colonel Dahitule, are you ready? Good evening. Yeah. Dr. Colonel Dahitule is the Regional Director, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, Eastern and Northeastern region. After completing graduation in microbiology, he has done multiple postgraduate courses in management, law, public health, and others. He has also undertaken training in forensic science and laboratory quality management systems and internal audit. He has attended the Global Food Safety Initiative in USA, the Global Food Safety Partnership hosted by World Bank in USA, the meeting of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency in Canada on invitation. He is looking after food safety issues of 14 states of India and approximately 350 million population residing in these states. He will be speaking on the measures taken by Fssai during COVID-19 pandemic in India. Colonel Dahitule, please.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me opportunity. I hope that I'm audible. Presentation can be closed from screen. I will be talking without any slides. So I'm just waiting for that. We can blank the screen.
Yeah.
So
Please
meanwhile, I
screen.
talk about Fssai, as you have said, is food safety and standards. So let us first try and understand this organization, which is responsible for safety and standards. Standards are those which are set in, maybe in consultation with codex, international guidelines. And safety is what we are ensuring in-house, that is by compliance of various rule, regulation, act. So 2006, this Food Safety and Standards Act came into play and perspective change. Now why I'm referring that back and why I'm talking about timelines? Because today my topic is measures taken by Fssai during COVID-19 pandemic. So we have one thing in common, that is timeline of pandemic. Secondly, we have to understand regulators' role before you get into subject proper. So prior to 2006, it was more oriented toward inspection and compliance. Post 2006 Act, we shifted to comprehensive concept of food safety. So the strategy which involves in implementation was awareness, then capacity building, hand holding and enforcement. So it was very wide, not restricted to only adulteration of food. It was very exhaustive because we wanted people to join this movement and we wanted to make it a successful implementation regular strategy. That's how we wanted more and more PPP model and comprehensive compliance. Now coming back, why safety is important. Safety was important finally to ensure your food security. If your food is not safe, it will go waste. Either it will be not of that standard for consumption or there will be issues. Perforce we have to dispose of that unsafe food. And food, to my mind, if it is safe, then it is food. If it is not safe, it is not food. Now, about today's topic, let us talk something which is more interesting. We have understood immunity, we have understood contribution of nutrition. Now let us change our sights to implementation. What goes in enforcing it on ground? What are challenges? What is the real situation analysis? Because we have to be sensitive, flexible to understand market, how businesses are trying to survive in this challenging time, what all actions we should take to maintain that fine-tuned equilibrium of demand and supply, how we should meet requirements of society, people who in COVID period were more or less stationary. So all these challenges were thrown at a drop of hat, and as a regulator, we took a very balanced, conscious and mature decision to gradually respond to whatever comes our way. So there are phases, stages in which the response continue. So as I said, it was a very sensitive time and our supply chains were threatened. We had very challenges. Our import was crucial because Kolkata being one of the largest port of India, we have to ensure that this food supply import doesn't stop. We have to have our vigilance in place. We have to have lab network functioning. Then only we can ensure this safety. So challenges were many and answers were very few. Now coming to the organization and jurisdiction. What I control is basically and serve is 7 states of Northeast and then other 7 starting from Sikkim to Chhattisgarh and Andaman Nicobar. Now, what was important for 35 crore population, that commodity prices should remain more or less same. There should not be large escalation. Consumers' trust should be maintained. Whatever labeling, whatever transparency, whatever accountability we have as per law should be in place, should not be shaken up by the challenges. I'll be highlighting challenges subsequently. So in these 14 states, these were major issues. Now, as far as jurisdiction goes and what comes in and what goes out, we have domestic production and import, which comes through different food entry points. We have 13 food entry points. In my area of jurisdiction, we have 76 seaports, including minor one, 16 airport. So it was a major challenge. And we have to keep everything functional, everything up to the standard which is desired as per law. So we have to be vigilant 24/7. And we ensure that, and it is a great matter of pride, that our commodity prices remain constant. There were perceived shortages at time, but we could quickly come into action and ensure that it is restored. We could meet people's expectation of demand and supply by our responsible organization at state level and office at regional level. Now at regional level, what I look after basically is the entire import of 14 states, then large food business organization, that is who are having turnover of 20 CR and more. Then a lot of hospitality industries, 5-star and above hotels, then some manufacturing units, that is sensitive meat, dairy with certain caps, then packaged drinking water, and most importantly was e-commerce. Now challenge lies in e-commerce because suddenly everything shifted to digital platform. And we could expedite our licenses. We could ensure those who are keen to do e-platform business. We could meet the regulatory compliance requirement of timely issuing of these licenses, facilitating their businesses, and wherever they want to supply, we could facilitate it all across 14 states. Now, what is the organization which was responsible for this success? As you are aware that every state has a state food commissioner and district has a designated officer. So I worked with them 24/7, and our main cutting edge, that is field officers who are food safety officers at Tehsil or block level. We had a dedicated backup of our labs, that is state food labs. There are 12 labs in my 14 state. Then we have private labs which had a major role in import. In addition to that, we had National Food Lab, which is there in Kolkata. Apart from these labs, customs network was also active, guarding the land port station from where food was coming inside. This was a time where we were exploiting potential of digital media. This was a time from where we could integrate our system. We had a comprehensive system of licensing and regulation for state, minor businesses and PT businesses, which we combine with other systems of training, inspection, And on 1st of June, we launched a comprehensive digital platform called as Fssai, which is very transparent, user-friendly, digital and cloud-based system. And during COVID, we could overcome our challenges of speed and data redundancy issues and achieve much faster public service platform. Now, why it is important? Because it has a dedicated portal for your grievances. At a single click, you can carry across the system and complain, and you will get a feedback. That is an integrated system we could develop. Coming to timelines. What had happened, as you are aware, the global emergency was declared on 30th of Jan and pandemic was declared on 11th March. So let me talk about proactive action of Fssai. Before declaring this pandemic by WHO on 5th of March, Fssai issued a comprehensive press release guiding food businesses and precautions which are required to be taken. So we started working much before it was a pandemic in India, and that is how we were proactive. Now coming to, I will just divide into two phases. Actually, I'm constrained because of time. It's already 6:15, and I'm also keeping a discrete eye on my screen, where number of participants shot to 364, now it is 229. So that is one of my job is surveillance. So I have to keep an eye what is happening, who is doing what. So I'm just rushing up, next 5-10 minutes I'll try and wind up. So in phase 1, when pandemic was declared, we had number of questions for a regulator, particularly in a lockdown phase. We started from 25th of March to 1st of June. Before that, we experienced Janta curfew on 22nd of March on request of Honorable Prime Minister. Now that was the time, that is somewhere in last week of March, things started moving very fast. People started stocking because there were apprehensions. They were not pretty sure whether this virus is spreading through food. They had all reasons to suspect because no credible thought was shared, and they were in constant mode of thinking because by that time was very less to predict, to comprehensively state that it is related to food or not. And we are fortunate that subsequently everybody, that is WHO has various phases said, it is not getting transmitted through food. So major issue, food was safe. But simultaneously, second important issue was whether our food chains were safe. Unfortunately, answer was no, because at every stage of food chain, there were multiple barriers, and we have to cross all that to meet people's expectation, whether it is a large manufacturing unit, primary producers, distribution, packer, repacker, and retail shop. At every place, there was a possibility of this virus getting associated either with food packaging or with food handler. And that is how it became our topic, very relevant, very responsible. Now, second issue, why it created so much of a turbulence? Because it affected businesses adversely. Your all restaurants were closed down, hotels were shut, and people had a lot of apprehensions in their mind. So it was prudent for a regulator to address the challenge of food chain. So we ensured that wherever large factories are there, production doesn't stop. Wherever migrant movement is there, community kitchens are functionable. Wherever there are diet needs, we ensured supply of surplus food which would have otherwise gone waste. We ensure that our import is not hindered, and we ensure that our permissions in terms of licenses are given on time. We did give temporary permissions to operate a food business for a certain period of time, less manufacturing. So during COVID time, somebody wanted to start food business, applies temporarily, couldn't manage to get a license. We said, no, you can go ahead, you can start your business because food is important. Now, how important food is to human life? We all have to breathe to be living. So first is oxygen, broadly air. Second, it is water. And third, it is food. So water is what we look into, and food is what is our bread and butter. So we are very important to every man of this 35 CR population. We were aware, we were sensitive, and that's how we were working. During COVID period, I frequently visited Kolkata and other Haldia port. In spite of all restrictions in red zone operations, number of deaths we have seen, by my team of officers worked relentlessly. And they have not succumbed to any pressure at any point of time. Now coming to compliance issues. Once this normal supply chain got affected, we started facing problem of packaging because there was a shortage of packaged food articles. Companies were facing a problem because the stocks were limited. We had challenges in terms of testing, and we have challenges in terms of deadlines because we have to also see whether food business is timely filling their annual returns, what kind of activities they are doing. This is all part of regulatory function. So we extended timelines. We allowed bulk movement of food. We ensured that at places we did not compromise with packaging. So holding traceability at its end, we ensured smooth movement of food. Now, once this phase 1 started moving up and we've gone through lockdown 1 and 2, by 3rd of May, where lockdown 3, that is where I'm now focusing on. So by and large, things were pretty clear that food chain has started reviving. Now number of medium and small factories also started getting into action. Now it is coming back of a market because it was an essential service, and now larger people moving around. So there were issues of import teams moving, there were issues of small markets, retail shop. We could ensure that they function seamlessly during this challenging time. Now coming to regulatory functions, actions taken by Fssai, in addition to what permissions were granted, we reduce inspections but increase surveillance and put checks at places where risks were more. Now my food safety officer, the cutting edge I talked about at Tehsil level, will also be in multiple roles at places looking after number of hospitals, patient, at places conducting number of campaigns related to COVID, at places they were more sort of dedicatedly doing surveillance. So based on state's requirement of health, they were doing dual role. So responsibility was much more, and I'm really glad to put it on record that they all succeeded and with exceptional results. Now coming to special issues like filing of annual return, we increased the deadlines, renewal, we postponed it to 31st August, import of specialty food, again we could accommodate them. Now major challenges was training. And I will take just 2 minutes to tell you what was done in training and how fast the regulator required. It was not a conventional regulator just watching a thing, but it was a regulator who was interested in capacity building and enforcing that more and more people join a system. So after issuing our guidance note 1 related to hygiene and safety for food businesses, after a period of 35 days during which we conducted number of meetings on digital platform with large food businesses, we started our flagship program by putting a special fast track training, that is food safety training of COVID, which was run at free of cost, addressing food handlers challenges. And what we talked about is basically 3 layers: what is happening outside the business premises, what is happening inside where core functioning is done, and what is happening to that person, issuing a very comprehensive guidelines, what should be done and what should not be done. Because we at places in open market, not under surveillance, tend to forget certain things and take shortcuts. So this tendency of taking shortcut on account of kya farak padta hai, we could grill in everybody's mind, bahut farak padta hai. So it makes a lot of difference if you don't agree and accept and implement, because main challenge is human behavior, how much we comply as an obedient citizen, how we cooperate with business wherever we go for shopping of food related items, how we store them, how much personal hygiene and sanitation requirement we fulfill. That is what we could engrill. I think I'm overshooting time, so let me skip certain strategies and directly come to a communication issue, and I will try and wind up. So we went into specific COVID-19 media page, which is flagged on our website. So you can through various guidelines and see what is required to be done. We started a campaign of key messages, social media campaign, in which in all local languages we issued number of messages, and I'm sure you would have seen more than 10 on your mobile related to food safety, personal hygiene practices, then healthy eating habits, what we briefly discussed was one of the topic today, and social distancing, how we should comply the requirement. Then on government e-platform, we have loaded 30 to 40 second short videos, and we could build in capacity from 300 videos to 1000 videos. We open certain material on UNICEF India page, and we started issuing something very important is Mythbuster. That is changing people's perception, how things should be done. So this was important. And we engage all places with state governments where this myth translated into big hurdles for businesses. To quote an example, COVID people thought and claimed in some state there is a chance that it can spread through cold drinks. So they started banning it. They started stopping sale of ice creams. They started objecting to frozen food. So that is the time we intervened. We said, no, it doesn't. So that is how we interacted. We were responsive. Now coming to IT-enabled service, one point I want to make it that we started an integrated e-payment portal with our main portal. We migrated on a platform which I talked about. And coming to brief achievement, maybe last point what I want to make is what were our achievement during this period. Import went on like what it was before. Supply chain susceptibilities or weak points we could address. We could launch Fssai during COVID on 1st of June. We were successful. We could ensure new licenses doesn't suffer and renewal and modification is done in time. And before COVID, I happened to visit United States for one global conference, and we talked about malnutrition and other challenges. Let me put it on record. I was fortunate to represent Indian delegation, and in Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, we got a help, that is donation of $300 million, that is 2100 CR, for large scale fortification projects, which are being run primarily in some of the major states where this challenge is there. Then out of my labs, I have put 8 labs out of 12 on a path of enable accreditation by my dedicated effort along with my team. And that is what, to sum up in nutshell, what we did pre, during and post COVID. This Challenges will continue, but we have to come together and fight together because it is everybody's battle. So let me end up with a message that it is not what Fssi did during COVID. It is more important that we as a citizen, what we did for our nation, let it be banning Chinese applications, softwares, some funny apps, to having restraint of not consuming particular foreign goods and saving that much of money. So what I do for India matter, because I am an army officer who spent more than 25 years in uniform and I am on deputation. Anybody, anything on food safety, I am available 24/7. And thank you so much for giving me opportunity to talk. And I end up, due to good wishes of my team, I am now nominated for United States Fellowship Program, and maybe in few months' time, I'll be moving to US for some advanced studies. Thank you so much, sir. I have finished.
Thank you, Colonel Daitule, and congratulations for your invitation. This is an opportunity to hear from a person who matters regarding the Fssi. What is their activity? What kind of measures they are actually taking in this pandemic situation? As the time is short, just one question for you from a participant. And I just like to ask you another question, or rather inquiry. The question is this: is there any process to disinfect raw vegetables and packed foods brought from market?
Sir, we have issued number of advisories. I feel they can go through that, because and if there are specific queries, we can talk about major implementation issues.
Okay.
We have processes. We know that lukewarm water should be there, that what should be mixed, what should not be mixed. So it is at that level. I would not be getting into that.
That's fine. My inquiry is this, that vitamin D deficiency has become a major problem, not in the countries like Finland, Norway, and others, but also India for many years. Vitamin D deficiency is very common among the common peoples. As I understand that probably we are having vitamin D fortified oil and milk available in the country. Are you planning to have any vitamin D fortification in near future? Because vitamin D supplementation in the form of capsule is not really a solution.
Sir, as a regulator, what I would like to say that fortification is one of the program, but major challenge in fortification is, again, I always say it's a demand-driven market. So there are 5 different schemes in which we are putting fortified products for common person. And at district level and state, we have steering committees. We have number of people who are producing fortified products, but it is at a stage where pilot to full-fledged implementation is going to take time. So apart from that, as a regulator's perspective, I am saying we are encouraging fortification, but if you talk about core fortification requirement and what will affect what, that's probably Ministry of Health is looking after. It's a big subject with their 29 vertical program going on. Some of the programs are related to this. So I would not like to comment, but let me tell you, midday meal is what we are encouraging and monitoring fortified products.
Actually, my question is very specific. I'm just interested with vitamin D, because vitamin D fortification is very common in the Western countries, particularly where there is a risk of vitamin D deficiency. But despite in the country now, it is very clear that most of the people, there are a lot of reports that are coming up that vitamin D deficiency has become very common in spite of a lot of sunshine. And whether the government is thinking on that line, that whether they're thinking that vitamin D should be incorporated in some of the common foods. That was a simple inquiry.
I will not be, because there is a division, sir, which at different place looking after. So for me, it won't be very correct to comment on policy, because I'm a implementation man. I have to implement whatever being decided.
And that is a policy matter.
Yeah, that's a policy. Though let me tell you, I have gone through some of the studies in Asian context, and there are very few studies. I'm in touch with BMGF, but it's all it's a totally different subject. So it would not be very correct for me to answer this.
Professor Devnath, okay. I have a question.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Another question I will ask to Daitullah. After that, you will ask, or now? Let me ask first the question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
There is a question from the participant, Alok Ghosh. This is for, I think, Colonel Daitullah. Post-COVID era, we are using a lot of plastic in packaging. How does Fssi control microplastic contamination in food and water?
He's talking about migration phenomena, which we have an institute of packaging, and they certify this product so that migration doesn't happen. That is infiltration of these molecules into food. Again, a very special subject, but packaging is certified by them before it is declared fit to be used as food package.
Thank you very much, Pramodji.
I'm learning actually with all you people.
My
expertise were totally different. Just 10 months back, I was in uniform. So it's good to hear and learn.
Thank you so much. For Dr. Chattopadhyay, there are many questions. I just like to ask you one question. Dr. Chattopadhyay?
Yes, I'm here. Please tell me.
Let me ask this question to you, and then you will please ask the last question for the session to Colonel Daitullah. This is about asymptomatic. I got 2-3 questions on this. Basically, people are interested to know what will be the status of the asymptomatic persons. Are they equally vulnerable like symptomatic person?
Usually not. It's a very, very nice question. Actually, asymptomatic, why people get asymptomatic? There are 3 points. Either the virus entered is not in a perfect infective dose. You know, we call the infective dose when we infect something, and when the virus or bacteria multiplies in the body, we call it load. So you can say either infective dose or load. So the amount of virus inserted into the body, if it is less, then the person can be asymptomatic. Secondly, when the virus entered into the goblet and ciliated cell of our airway tube, then our defense can able to restrict the virus for multiplying, and if it passes 10 days now, virus cannot able to infect. The first 10 days is very important for this virus. The information so far gathered throughout the globe, it comes out that up to 10 days, 10 to 11 days, virus is infective, and then the virus loses its infectivity. So if your immune system can inhibit the virus or can protect the virus before by rapid multiplication to go inside within the airway tube, that is the asymptomatic case. In that case, what happened when asymptomatic people, the virus load is very less, but virus is multiplying. When we are talking now, through talk, the virus is coming out. Okay. So asymptomatic case, now it is 90% asymptomatic. After 1 month, it will be 95%. And in one point of time, it will 98% asymptomatic case can come. So don't worry about the virus. I initially told that virus has a very strong character. It is not characterless. It is doing to adjust the human body as a host. And in coming days, this virus will reside in our body just like other viruses. But year after year, new viruses will come. That is true, as a pandemic.
Thank you. If you like to ask the question, as you said,
yes,
to Colonel Daitullah.
To Colonel Pramodji, as a regulator of Fssi, when the product are developed with fortification, is there any scientific study that what you have fortified in the product, body can take those things and in what percentage. It's a fascination. Or people all fortified. Few things comes through fortification, but not all. As scientists, and you see, we are the National Institute of Traditional Medicine. I do not know your Fssai things where they are tested from which laboratory, but we have a very accredited laboratory, and we are working with some food products also and some medicinal plant. So it's my question, until and unless we are going to study on it.
No, it's very interesting actually. We have standards division. So any new product which is introduced in a market requires product approval. So that is done by standards division. They are at headquarters. So they study various ingredients, additives and all that, whether it is proprietary or new or whatever way it has come. And then they approve through a process called as different panels. And there are 2 meetings of very eminent people like you. They decide where it is correct and that recommended daily allowance and nutraceutical, full ingredient, your requirement, where it is drug, not drug. So a lot of technical things happen and finally it is approved as fortified. So that's how broadly it is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
I'd like to thank on my behalf to all the speakers, and just like to hand over the session to Joyita.
Thank you, sir, and distinguished panelists for such wonderful interacting session. Now we can understand how nutrition is crucial for every perspective of our life. Considering that, we are also curious to know the career perspective after completing postgraduate course in dietetics and nutrition. So I would like to request Dr. Debnath Chaudhary again to provide us a brief information about it.
Regarding what? I did not know that you will ask a question to me.
That is, sir, career perspective after completing postgraduate course in dietetics and nutrition.
Oh, there are plenty of careers after doing the post-graduation in nutrition, dietetics and nutrition. A student can work in a hospital as a clinical nutritionist. A person can, after passing it, can work in the community as a community dietitian, can work in a health center or weight management center as a dietitian. This is the area where dietitians can work. Of course, a dietitian can do practice of her own. Besides that, after passing dietetics and nutrition, if anybody interested to do research, further research, so one can do a PhD. For that, one can do all the formalities like passing NATE, etc., UGC NATE, or ICMR NATE, ICMR JRF, and other things, and pursue PhD and try his luck in the research area. At the same time, MSc student, after passing it, can work as a educationist, I mean a teacher in a school or in a college, even in a university. There is ample scope to work in certain government sectors, like even in Fssi. If I'm not wrong, Colonel Dehetullah is there. One can get a chance as a food analyst. I think in the eligibility, food and nutrition MSc is there. And there are certain sectors like rural health mission, etc., where there is a nutrition rehabilitation center in the normally in a remote areas, and they take nutritionists in the contractual basis, but good reasonable salary for that. One can opt for a mass media even, because a lot of nutrition related writings are coming up in the different media, in the printed media particularly. So that type of journalism, sort of journalism, one can take up. So there are many avenues what MSc student after passing it can do. But one thing is important, whatever they will do, what is most important is the development of the knowledge, development of the skill, development of the confidence to work in a particular sector. As there is a time constraint, we are really running short. So I'm not going into any further detail. So just like other speakers, if anybody like to have put a question, can send that in a chat or in a mail to you, and you can take the initiative to get the answer from the speakers as well as from me and convey to them. Thank you very much.
Jaita, in addition of that, I like a question to Pramodji. Pramodji, I think there's a lot of opportunity for the dietitians in the food industry. Because if I'm not wrong, a lot of scopes are there in a food industry like Nestle, Abbott. I have seen a lot of dietetics and nutrition has been recruited. What is your idea, please, Pramodji?
Sir, 2-3 things have happened recently. First is now there is a requirement of putting technical person in large dairy sector. Secondly, for star hotels, and this nutritionist is treated as one of the technical qualification for that. So there is a scope for dairies who are handling more than 50,000 liter and above capacity, then all 5-star hotels. So that is as far as the large businesses go. And there are other similar businesses. Coming to regulators inside organization, they are eligible for food safety officer / technical officers post. There are state related variations, but I will not get into that. But for definitely eligible, they can try. Apart from that, we have a technical officers post in lab also and food analyst post, and they have QR after PG, certain experience is required. So these are broad openings, but if there are queries, kindly share me on a mail. We'll revert back with more details and specifics.
I just like to supplement the thing. What you said is very correct, which I missed. Regarding these companies who are producing the food supplements. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Regarding the companies producing, you said Abbott and others, etc. So many companies are producing, Nestle, they are producing food supplements, and they are actually recruiting, in fact, recruiting nutritionists and for promoting their products. Often these nutritionists or dietitian work with a doctor. Sometimes they work with a doctor. They sit with the doctor, they give diet nutrition counseling to the patient, and of course they market their product in which company they are working. Yeah, correctly said. And the hotel part, Colonel Dahitullah covered. Yes. Actually, in even the production level, in the food production area, in the industry, of course, it depends on from where the student has passed. If in the syllabus there is enough of food technology, food processing, so they may even get the chance to work in the food processing system. But at least if they are having a lot of food science and other knowledges, food microbiology, etc., they may work in the quality control lab, and it is happening. It is not that nutrition past students are not working in these areas. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaita.
Thank you, sir. We are not having such questions related to careers right now. So that can be all for today. It was a wonderful session. On behalf of NSHM, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Ashim Dottoroi, the eminent scientist, professor, University of Oslo. Thank you very much, sir. We're glad you accept our invitation, and we will hope to have you again in future. Thank you for your inspiring address and scientific enlightenment. I would like to thank Dr. Dev Prasad Chattopadhyay, Director, ICMR, National Institute of Traditional Medicine. Thank you, sir, for extending your cooperation and responding us on this occasion in such a short notice. A big thank you to Colonel Pramod Shahaji Daitule, Director, Fssai, Kolkata. We're glad to have you, sir. Thank you for your enlightening speech. We also hope to see you, sir, in our own campus as soon as the COVID-19 crisis get over. We thank Dr. Devnath Chaudhary, Professor, All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health. Thank you, sir, for being our pillar of support for all the time. You have always extended your support whenever we needed. We are also thankful to all the team members of NSHM family, especially Dr. Subhashish Maiti, Director, NSHM Knowledge Campus, Kolkata Group of Institution. Thank you, students and dear participants across India who have contributed enormously to make this webinar a huge success, and we hope to continue many more in near future. Thank you everyone for being such a wonderful audience. Now this comes to an end of today's webinar. Hope to see you again. Thank you.